Hello, everybody, and welcome to OpenExO Live. Really great to be with you this week. And this week we have Lisa Pereira with us, who is calling in from California. And you can see the next few folks that are coming up. And you can also apply to be on the show for our next season, which will start on the 1st of September. We're taking a break in August, and if you want to share your EXO journey and your EXO story on OpenExO Live, please do head over to the marketplace to apply to be on the show. And before we get Lisa up on screen, I do have a few community members that have shared, and the first one comes from Pedro, and he just says, Lisa is a kind soul that always puts a smile on your face. Since we first met, she has always been generous and humble in sharing all she knows. Thanks, Lisa. Next comes from Sophie. In a world that can be dominated by relatively few views and voices, Lisa creates space for each OpenExO community member to find their voice and be heard. Her contributing writer benefits, each contributing writer benefits from Lisa's editorial care, attention to detail, and drive for important stories to be told. In turn, the world benefits from a catalog of a diverse thought leadership and evidence that a committed group of individuals are working to transform the world for a better future. Next, from Beatrice, creative, forward-looking, goal-oriented, and proactive. These are the significant characteristics that describe Lisa. I met Lisa through the OpenExO Insight community of contributing authors, and we immediately started a prolific and joyful collaboration. Lisa is brilliant, engaging, and supportive. She is a reference point for our community and mostly a source of inspiration for our OpenExO Insight articles. Not surprisingly, this attitude is clearly defined by her MTP. To me, Lisa is more than a colleague. She has a gold heart, making her a trustful and precious friend and the type of person you would like to have in your team and in your life. Thank you, Lisa, for this amazing contribution and friendship. This is a gift that truly proves that distance doesn't really matter. Next, from Joey, I've worked with Lisa for several years at Singularity University and OpenExO Speakers. Lisa is a talented and creative writer and works well with the many personalities that come in the speaking world. She is able to juggle multiple priorities and make sense of challenging situations to keep things moving forward. Lisa is also just a wonderful human. And then lastly, from Salim, I've known Lisa for about 10 years now, first at SU and then over the last few years in the OpenExO community. She's been, it's been always an incredible joy working with her. She's buttoned down, incredibly good at research, and very creative with ideas. Never seems to stop working. And frankly, the new version of Exponential Organizations would absolutely not have gotten done without her. She's been absolutely dedicated to it and has put in thousands of hours in getting it together and helping us finish it. So huge kudos. It's really been wonderful, a wonderful experience over all these years. Hope it continues for a long time. And so with that, let's welcome up Lisa. Lisa, welcome to OpenExO Live. How are you doing this morning, afternoon for you? Morning.
It's morning. It's 8 a.m. It's great.
Early morning.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on the show. I've seen so many of these, so it's always now I'm on the other end, so it's cool.
Awesome. Really great to have you. And I always start off by asking the person I'm speaking to, tell us about yourself, a little bit about your journey and your journey towards the OpenExO community? We've heard a little bit from some others, but can you tell us your story?
So, I always sometimes I feel like our background kind of shapes who we are. So, my parents are from the Azores in Portugal, so small little islands in the middle of the Atlantic. And after they were married, they came to America with just a suitcase. So I grew up first in Massachusetts, but my dad, because there doesn't really snow, um, we moved to California, where my mom's sister and brother were, because my dad was just done with the snow. And it was
Yes.
great to have moved to San Jose, California, like kind of the heart of Silicon Valley in the 70s, because the electronics and just tech was starting to boom. So some of the interesting stories was like my mom, my parents from a small village didn't even really go to high school because you just had a certain level of education. And at that time in San Jose, they were asking for people in the electronics industry. And because my mom was really detail oriented, an avid knitter and crochet, like she was like a perfect candidate to come in, and she took some night classes on soldering and did these circuit boards. And all of a sudden she got hired by one of these tech companies that was then acquired from Hewlett Packard, and she worked at Hewlett Packard for years, just working a lot. And she would do all these computations, and people ask her what college she went to. And, it was just, a little village in Europe, in Portugal. So I just think that that's one of those amazing, like, immigrant stories, um,
Mm,
of coming to America. And then, so another like Silicon Valley story I think of, just if you think of exponential technologies, is when I finished high school, I needed a job to help pay for college, and I didn't wanna just do random retail. So I went to travel school part-time to just learn a skill, and started working at some travel agencies. And in travel school, you learned, like, everything was a blank black DOS screen. So you had these travel books and big, like, huge book on just hotels around the world, and you'd have to call these hotels. And, like, it was crazy because all of a sudden, if I had to book someone in Jakarta or wherever, like, I have to think about time zones and, like, connecting flights and do all this mathematical equations and codes on a blank, like, a DOS screen. And by the time I finished my career with the travel industry, I was working at one of the first online travel industry agencies in San Francisco, where we had a Windows interface and people were now booking their
mm.
travel, and so all of a sudden now I'm just dealing with someone booking LAX instead of LAS, Las Vegas versus Los Angeles, and just making little errors like that and having to redo tickets. And anyways, but what was fascinating was that what this online travel industry agency had done in 1 year was what a small mom and pop agency had done in over a year. So what we did in a month, like, a lot of companies had done in a year, which was like, wow.
Wow.
So it was cool to just have experienced that from those two, like, see that growth in it, in that
Yes.
industry. Um, yeah, so then after that, went to college. My degree is in humanities, so I love learning more about people and and culture. So I spent some time stuck because I feel like to learn about cultures, it's best to live in it and not just go for 1 week. Um, and so I spent a year studying in the south of France, studied literature and theater. And then after, I went to go work at the World's Fair in Portugal, in 98. And so if anyone, you should always go to a World's Fair at least once in your life. It's an amazing experience. The theme that year was about the oceans and preserving them for the future. So I got to meet Dr. Sylvia Earle, who I also later met at SU when I was working there. I spoke broken French with Jean-Michel Cousteau, which is like amazing because in high school I took oceanography, and that was like one of my favorite science classes. Um, and then, 4th of July, we had party with BB King and met astronauts, prime ministers, and just lots of really cool people having worked there. And then later for my master's degree, I went to Rio de Janeiro to do some research on late 19th century Brazilian music. So um,
Hmm.
I love to travel. Um, and then I don't know, college. When you think about college, like influential like courses or things that made an impact. One of the classes in my grad program was cyberspace and the humanities. So we looked at Kevin Kelly, who I know a lot of people talk about, and we looked a lot at his Out of Control, Janet Murray's Hamlet on the Holodeck, which talks about like digital spaces and the narratives that shape our lives. Lots of great discussions in grad school, which I loved and kind of lend themselves to exponential technologies and things that we talk about today. Um,
Mm,
so one of my favorite books of all time, also because it's a female writer, but Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which, if you think about it from a book written in the early 1800s, it's an amazing sort of like early science fiction that touches on like ethics and science, this identity. Um, and you're just thinking about like, I think about reanimation is really fascinating. More because if we're gonna get like cyborgs and just all these, like I remember Neil Jacobstein in a thing was talking already, like contact lenses are really already an extension of our human capabilities. So we already have these like mild cyborgness happening, and so and
mm,
then there's prosthetic implants and all this amazing, and 3D printed organs. So at what point how much of us are we gonna reanimate like humans,
mm,
you know? So it's I don't know. Um, I think of myself as like an optimist and realist and ask myself how we can build a star tech future of abundance that includes diversity, empathy, and inclusion. So that's just one of the things I'm very fascinated with in neuroscience, like how our minds work over time. So Um, after college, I started working at some, startups, and then I worked at Stanford's Center for Innovation and Learning. I worked at a Media X program, a couple of Media X programs at Stanford, which that's where I met Paul Sappho and Neil Jacobstein, who many people in the community either have gone through an SU program or have, you know, s- listened to their talks. I think Paul was at one of our town halls a couple months ago.
mm,
Um, so that was cool. And then after that, I went and taught high school and I taught technology for teachers in a credential program. Um, I'll talk a little bit more about teaching in a second. But after that, I wanted something different and I went to Singularity University and I was the faculty relations coordinator. And that's where I met Salim and Kent. Um, I saw them speak several times. I've worked at over 30 executive programs, so I've seen a lot of people talk about intro to exponentials and exponential organizations. I help recruit new faculty. We did these weekly colloquium series to just vet new speakers. Um, I did a bi-monthly newsletter. So yeah, just kept things kept going, and the newsletter I did for faculty was literally a way for them to kind of get to know each other, but also stay in the know of what was going on at SU. And so that's kind of also we just started the OpenExO Insight weekly newsletter for the community to kind of know what's going on with the community and some of the thought leadership with EXO Insights. Um, yeah, so at the end of 2019, I started talking to Kent and Salim about joining OpenEXO, and then I went on a trip to Antarctica, which was definitely amazing. Because when I was young, I really was on my bucket list was actually a smaller sailboat around the Cape Horn, um, and the Strait of Magellan, and so, but this time, now that I'm older, I was just like, "No, let's just do a professional cruise ship." So, wanted went to Tierra del Fuego, and I just always wanted to go to Antarctica, so it was very I don't know, it's a very spiritual, meditative it was just beautiful because it's so untouched and pristine. It was
mm,
beautiful. Highly recommend it. Well, I don't want a whole world to go there because then it'll it'll lose its magic, but it is beautiful. So when I came back from that trip, I started working with Lily, at EXO Speakers, so we started that up. and then began helping at EXO World events. Um, then Salim asked me to help manage the updated edition of Exponential Organizations. We started getting curators, which is great. We got over 90 people from the community sign up. We had, I don't know how many Zoom calls and hop-in events to talk about the book. So it was like this deep dive. It was really great. Can't even tell you about how many Zoom transcripts said that I weave through and content. Um, so yeah, a lot of case studies and learning. It was really cool to just hear what community members are doing in their communities and in their companies. And also, like as I stated last July, we started EXO Insight as a way to amplify the voices of the community, which kind of lends itself to the MTP.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you didn't mention that we pretty much broke
Oh yeah, the Google.
Google Docs, hit the number of characters that can fit into one doc. And so it's been a really interesting journey. And I think what you said beforehand, Lisa, is actually getting an understanding of someone's story can right from the beginning can tell you a lot about someone, about your your upbringing and your parents. It is really interesting to see. And so, but before we move on to another question, we actually have a question from Rodrigo here that he's asked on YouTube, which has said, Lisa, what insights have you obtained from EXO Insights?
um I mean, it's just so great to hear like all the different stories. Just everything from on Pedro has like abundant stories on entrepreneurship and startups and companies. So that's even having I worked at a couple startups. It's great to see, his lens because he's been deep dive in it. Um, I mean, Beatrice has a wealth of knowledge in neuroscience, so I've learned a lot about that. I mean, I thought I learned a lot with Divya at SU, but I keep learning a lot with Beatrice as well. So it's just been great to just hear the content and get it out there so that other community members can learn from it as well.
No, absolutely, and a fairly diverse, range of articles that come out, right?
Correct.
That, that those people in the community that have a deep knowledge of certain aspects, really sharing that, which is really awesome.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, I'm sure we're going to speak a little bit about insights a little bit later, but I always want to know about people's MTP, about people, what is driving you. So tell us, Lisa, about your MTP.
So my MTP is about leveraging innovation for equity and inclusion. So all voices are heard. So I really believe that I think we can learn from all the voices, not just people who are like the Elon Musks of the world. I feel like we need to also just bring up other voices, and diversity I think is super important. So that is my MTP. I think part of it's like I feel like I really worked a lot on that MTP when I was a high school teacher. I was in a low income school, inner city school, was the activities director, so I was responsible for a lot of the major events like prom and graduation and running student government. So I taught a leadership class to a bunch of teenagers and did everything from how to project planning, conflict resolution, building consensus, team building, collaboration. And then I also taught journalism. So having students learn how to write and communicate to tell their stories in a school newspaper. That was really powerful. I felt like I was giving them the tools to empower themselves even when they left high school and into college. So that was yeah. And then also I think of like innovation as a big amplifier. And if you think of like Peter Diamandis, like the 60s of especially democratization and dematerialization. I mean, I think a lot of us have seen that video where there's a desk with all these like things, and then it goes like over years, and all of a sudden it's just like everything's on our phone and on our laptop. And I think that's just an amazing how I remember once there was like a art like musicians. I feel like musicians tell the story of a culture at a time because musicians, you don't have to have like a PhD to tell a story. Like you don't even need to know how to write to tell that story. I did a lot with like adult literacy, so it's about how do we communicate even if we don't know how to do it by pen and paper. So I feel music is powerful. So there was like musicians who couldn't afford an instrument. All of a sudden you can download that app, and there's, I think, an Academy Award winning guy who created music on just an app. And so I think that's really cool that tech can empower people. And then, everything from like crowdfunding to finding things online. It's just amazing. I mean, even in education, when I was a teacher, if I needed supplies, I would go on a site called like Free Cycle, which was all about keeping things out of landfill. And so anything I needed, I would just go there and people had it at home. And so I feel that sometimes the problem is about distribution and not, yeah. Like even if you think about food, how can we distribute it to people who need it?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
So going back to the MTP, I definitely feel with EXO Insight was created literally a year ago to amplify the voice of the community. We have over 55 authors and over 210 articles on EXO Insight. Our media reach now extends to over 18,000 people on the platform. And it's been just so wonderful meeting and working with so many people. My goal is to help anyone in the community get their story, be it that aha moment during a sprint or even an idea from a book that you read or an issue you're passionate about. I'm here to help get get your voice heard. I've created a writer's guide that has some tools and resources. So just reach out to me if you want that. We also have a weekly and a monthly writers club. So the weekly meets at 9 a.m., which is right after this, PST. And then the monthly is the second Thursday, and it's 8 p.m. PST, which also it helps for people like in India or New Zealand to be a more reasonable time on like a Friday morning, Friday afternoon. So that's a once a month club. And anyone can come. It's You don't even have to be writing. Just ask me for a calendar invite. And it's just great, safe space. It's not recorded, and you can talk about anything. Whether you have an outline, a draft, or just something you want to get out of out of your head. It's just a great place for people to come and explore ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I would say to anyone who's in the community that wants to share their knowledge or wants to get their voice heard. I mean, this is a great opportunity to do that, and it's also a great opportunity to meet with other community members.
Mhm.
And to hear what others are perhaps researching, looking at, or wanting to do. So, um, if you're interested and you're watching right now, do I guess
You could share my email. I mean, if you want, or reach out to Kevin or I, and we will send you, an invite. So yeah,
yeah, absolutely. And perhaps, Lisa, we need to somehow make that available without sticking a Zoom online, because then you're going to end up having some sort of
yeah,
Zoom bomber come in and do horrible things. Unfortunately,
exactly.
we've
Yeah.
we've we've experienced that before, and it's not always fun. So obviously, I mean, exponential organizations is sort of what underpins the whole OpenExO community, and a lot of what we do. Um, you know, what's your thinking towards the importance of EXO?
Um, I think for me, like the model is, it's interesting because I really think about it. How can we add the model for like government and in public schools or just education? Because you're thinking of like I talk about structures that are very linear. and how they would just benefit immensely from the model. Um, so my
Mm.
biggest frustration in education was, probably because I was like in the trenches, is imagine if we made educational structures like nonlinear, if we had more algorithms linked to learning styles on a dashboard that teachers could access. Um, Instead of having to go and pull up a student chart in a folder at the front office, like, and I mean, it's still there. Like, I'm in Silicon Valley, and it was just some of these like very old ways of doing things that I feel like if we just added some of these concepts from the model, it would just make a huge impact. I also think of like engagement and the Ectalysis framework. How can we gamify things in education, maybe even in government, get more people involved, you know? And it would just be just empowering. Um, like, I just remember teaching journalism and having to teach grammar. Like, how do you make grammar fun for a teenager? And so I would try to gamify it. I'd have these like story cubes and like just trying to find ways to make it interesting and engaging rather than just this book and this is how you write this type of sentence. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I definitely think that adding the model to these linear old structures would be make a big impact.
Yeah, and I think really important as we, as we move forward, and the world is changing, right? You know, I guess when we were at school, we pretty much knew what type of job perhaps we may get, right? It
Mhm.
was a lot more traditional.
Yeah,
Um, but now where it's like, will those traditional jobs of, doctors, lawyers, nurses, they are all going to be augmented in some way with AI or with,
exactly.
with robotics or with, and so how does that then change things? And so we definitely need school to change, right? So that it's not everybody doing the same curriculum. You
Exactly.
absolutely could have an algorithm that determines Lisa's path should be this and Kevin's path should be this, and have a way for the teachers to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But but it is tough with the immune system that you have in education, right?
It's also like when I think of like learning styles, like it's important to know how people learn. And I just remember in college, like, I was never math. Like, I could do my own finances and all that, but, like, if you're telling me these algebraic equations, like, you need to slow down so I can get it? And so I found that in college, if I took the online version where I can stop and pause the VHS, then I actually did really well instead of sitting in a classroom and be wondering like, "Oh my god, can you do that over?" And so learning that about yourself is just really important, and I think if students just learned how they learn, um, that and those algorithms and AI can help them, that would be even better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite crazy how, even when I did my masters, I thrived in subjects that, you know I enjoyed, and I realized how I learned, and I'm like, man, if only I'd known this, before, I I would have been
Yeah.
much better. I could have done something different, or whatever. I mean, obviously you can't go back in time. So, but it's like a good learning for, for future generations. Now, we've pretty much reached the time, even though it feels like it's been 5 minutes. It's
Yeah.
almost been 30. So it's been wonderful chatting to you. What is that one last thing you want to just share with the folks watching as we end off today?
I'm just going to put a shameless plug for EXO Insights and the Writers Club. So if you want to be a contributor, please sign up. I can help you write your article. I mean, I won't write it, but I don't want to like change your voice. Like, I want to keep your voice. I'm just there really to help you, like clarify things and guide you in your writing process. So do reach out to me. I'm here to help anyone get their voices heard. And then join our weekly writing club.
Awesome, Lisa. It's been wonderful chatting to you.
Like,
I get to chat to you all the time, but not like
so
this.
yeah,
So
that's true.
it's it's been really good, and we will see you around. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
So great chatting to Lisa, and to hear her story and her views around EXO. And so, if you again, if you're interested in writing for EXO Insights, or if you uh, want to join the Writers Club, please do reach out. I have put some links in the chat. Unfortunately, not on LinkedIn, because I can't do that from here. But it's been wonderful, and we'll see you all again next week, probably a little earlier, as we're speaking to Trent, who is in Australia. So do join us.